I'm really humbled to be here, and I'm telling you, be very honest with you, I'm very, very nervous. I actually wrote a speech, but I think I'm not going to follow this speech. And I really love what Billy has started. Actually, in the early 70s, when Richard Nixon declared war on cancer, well, he made two very pivotal decisions. I know some people in this country don't really like him, but he's kind of like, you know, I think for many Chinese, he's a hero. So he made two pivotal decisions. One is to normalize relationship with China. The second is to declare war on cancer. And I'm really totally unqualified to speak in front of so many distinguished scientists, business executives, and Dr. Chan, Dr. Wan. But I have one thing probably is unique to myself. I'm actually a product of Richard Nixon's opening up with China. And I was one of the first few people actually got a fellowship to study in the USA. I remember that when I got this fellowship, and I have some classmates in this room as well, my parents was making $20 a month, and I got this airplane tickets and $100. And they said, you're going to USA, going to this wonderful school called Baylor College of Medicine, okay? And my mother has never saw a US dollar bill. So this is from the Minister of Education. And I said, I'll give you $50 just as a token. So I had $50 and came to the USA in 1986. And it is all because of, I really, come from, I actually trace back to my interest in studying biology to actually my grandmother. When I was about 7 years old, my mother was sent to the countryside, Cultural Revolution and all this good stuff. One day my mother came back and told me that, grandmother got cancer. And she died of cervical cancer within about a year of diagnosis. And I was about 7, 8 years old, and grandmother was literally the closest person to me at that time. And I didn't understand what cancer is, but I just, God, this is my enemy for my life. Okay, so, and if I really trace back to all my education, and I really felt that, I actually do well in math and physics, but I decided not to go there. And I decided to study biochemistry and become a venture capitalist in the biology. And I actually have to say subconsciously, I have been influenced by the event my grandmother passed away from cervical cancer. And that really is, makes me one of the qualified person here, because I spent half of my life in China and half of my life in the United States. And today, when Suzanne and Franklin asked me to be involved in this event, and I say, God, this event is such a wonderful event. And the recipients of this honor is just fascinating people. I had the honor to host Dr. Chan 10 years ago when I was running an association called CDA in DC. And I don't remember exactly how that meeting went, but there's one impression I had with Dr. Chan is he's the most humble human being on earth. And he being a great scientist, and we always look up to him as a mentor and as a hero to our to the youngsters. But he always gave me this impression he's the most down-to-earth human being on earth. And I have to say that, I haven't seen him since he became the Minister of Health of China, managing healthcare for 1.3 billion people. And I have to say that yesterday we had dinner again, and he again gave me this most humble scientist attitude to some youngster like me. And I really think that it's really an honor to see Dr. Chan and Dr. Wan again. And this is what makes this event so special. So when I learned a little bit about this, this award, and I actually find it extremely fascinating that who Albert St. George is. I don't know how many of you knows about Albert St. George. He is a Hungarian Jew. And it looks like he not only is a very, very good scientist, but he kind of dedicated his life to other people's. He got his Nobel Prize in 1937, but he decided to donate all his Nobel Prize to fight the Winter War for Finland. And during the World War II, he actually helped many Jewish friends escape Nazi rules. And he joined the resistance, which actually was earned him an arrest warrant issued by Hitler himself. And he was hiding in Europe, until the Europe was liberated. And he was almost elected the president of Hungary. But he didn't like the way the country was run, and he came to the US and went to Maine. And because he was labeled as a potential communist, he couldn't get grant in this country. Okay, but eventually he was able to get grants. But in the early 70s, he kind of, when NIH asked him for grant, always asked all these minute, accounting of what he's gonna do about his grants and all that. He said, to hell with it, I'm not gonna apply to NIH grants. And he almost ran his research into financial ruins. And it's not until a lawyer by Franklin Salisbury, is the late father of the current president of National Foundation for Cancer Research, got together with Albert and formed this wonderful foundation. And now this wonderful foundation has been giving away a total of almost $300 million to cancer research. And this is really it's a signature of this one huge, wonderful scientist is always thinking about giving to other people. And I think the recipients of this award is even more fascinating. I remember somebody was telling me a story. Dr. Chen was actually a barefoot doctor in China. I don't know if you guys know what that means. It's my understanding is you get to send to the countryside and you have to, you have no medicine whatsoever. You have to take care of the farmers. And the amazing thing is Dr. Chen and Dr. Wan, in such terrible condition in China at the time, invented literally a cure for one type of rare form of leukemia, APL. And the 5-year disease-free survival of APL, thanks to the trans-retinoic acid and arsenic trioxide, has went from 25%, 5-year survival went from 25% to now almost 95%. Okay, so we can say that Dr. Chen and Dr. Wan has cured this disease because in cancer, we don't really see that kind of result that often. But one thing I really want to add a little bit more today is to ultimately find a cure for cancer really requires the joint venture of many, many people. It's really, when Richard Nixon declared a war on cancer, he might be thinking this as an American war. But the reality is cancer affects every one of us. It doesn't discriminate you whether you are Chinese or Americans or whether you are Catholic or Jewish, you're black or white. All of us get cancers. And it's really our biggest enemy inflicting human beings. And the commercialization process of therapeutics, diagnostics, is really a very difficult road. And I will give an example about arsenic trioxide in the USA. When Dr. Chen and Dr. Wan demonstrated wonderful clinical data in China, it is actually a tiny American company called Prorax. Peter is here. So actually, we have the honor of inviting one of the early investors of Prorax in this company. And Prorax literally finances this drug to do clinical trial in the USA. And it was the second, my understanding is the second shortest FDA approval from IND to approval in the FDA history. But Peter mentioned to me many times that this tiny company almost went out of business several times. And in one time, Peter and his friend has to raise $125,000 bridge loans just to keep the trial going. And eventually the drug is approved. And thanks to the effort of many entrepreneurs in the USA, that this drug not only is helping people in China, but is actually saving lives in this wonderful nation. I assume that several thousand patients' life is being saved by this drug every year in the United States. And I really think this is really a shining example that Chinese innovation plus US entrepreneurship can do wonders even for patients in the USA. And this is really what, why I'm here. And in front of everyone, pharma executives, biotech executives, distinguished scientists, and government officials, we need to do more of that. We need to do more of that. So we are now faced with many difficulties in today's economy. As a venture capitalist, we're seeing many biotech companies that are running out of money. Some of the wonderful ideas are not being funded simply because Wall Street is, think this is too risky, or pharma is thinking this is too risky. But the resources are everywhere. Good peoples are everywhere. People like Albert St. George and Dr. Chen, Dr. Wen are everywhere. Now, if we put our minds together, you never know where the resources will come from. I'll give you one example. Today's sponsor, Entremet. It was funded by my mentor's mentor, Jody Folkman, many years ago. And he's the first guy who proposed the anti-angiogenesis therapy and started this company called Entremet. And now with many, treacherous paths of Entremet, and eventually they merged with a company was started by Dr. Tekmak. And now he's Dr. Tekmak is actually sitting right with us today. And he invented this kinase inhibitor. It's a dual kinase inhibitor. It's an angiogenesis inhibitor, and it's a mitosis inhibitor. And there was enough money to went in there and finish some phase 2 clinical trial. And there are anecdotal data of this compound that it really works for some people. But somehow this company, even as a publicly traded company, is running out of money. And if they can't raise money in the USA, well, like many biotech companies, their fate is bankruptcy. And if they go bankrupt, the drug will probably never see another day. So luckily, I'm very proud to say that I'm involved in this process, that I'm actually a venture partner with a venture fund called IDG Excel, which is actually most people will know Excel by now because they're the second largest shareholder of Facebook. IDG Excel is this venture fund. It's a joint fund started by IDG. It's a Boston firm, and Excel, which is a Silicon Valley firm. They, have done a wonderful job in China. They invested in companies like Baidu, Ctrip, QQ, some of the most successful IT companies. And now they have about $4 billion under management. And one of their CEO, Quan, is actually sitting on the board of the company that I run, Origin. And when I told him about all these stories in the US, he said, maybe we can help. So luckily, we were able to convince IDG, and together with some investor tag brought together, we were able to raise $10 million for Entremet. And recently, so we had the luck to, with that money, we can actually pay for dinner. and be able to really, host, this wonderful distinguished guests. So now $10 million is, I understand, is a drop in the ocean. But we're using this $10 million to experimenting a whole new way of developing drugs. Because we're trying to use this mechanism. We're bringing $10 million from China to finance a US company, US NASDAQ traded company. So what are we trying to do? Okay, I'm sure Amgen will laugh at us because say $10 million is our rounding error. Or Pfizer will laugh at us, it's our rounding error. So, but we are using this as an example because we think every drug should have a chance. And if, by all means, we were able to put the resources of China and the US together to help this company, we may create a whole new paradigm to create drugs. Because indeed, US and China has very, very different strengths. Okay, I lived 20-some years in the US and 20-some years in China. And I will have to say, the relationship between US and China is at the tip of the iceberg. I think we are two largest economy in the world, but we're just starting to know each other. It's like the first date, okay? And I'm the messenger, in this whole dating scheme, okay? And so we're experimenting with this new way of developing cancer drugs. Now, if the two largest economy in the world cannot put our heads together to develop a cancer drug, now shame to me. My grandmother is going to be mad at me in heaven. Okay, so this is a whole new way we're doing because China does have tremendous amount of resources. For instance, we truly believe this drug can be a wonderful, candidate for liver cancer because of the molecular mechanism. It's an anti-angiogenic compound. It's an anti-mitotic compound. It's a kinase inhibitor. But China has more liver cancer patients than any other nation in the world. And US doesn't have that many liver cancer patients. If you truly want to conduct a trial in liver cancer, you will be able to enroll patients so much faster in China than in the US. And your cost of developing it will be much lower. And because that is one of the biggest problem of drug development in the USA, is the cost is going higher and higher every year. Now we're talking about spending $1 billion or $2 billion developing a drug, and the risk is getting higher and higher. Can we use a different mechanism? Can China open a whole new way of adding important clinical data for these very important compounds? We don't know. We don't know. I cannot guarantee you that Entremet will be a success, but there's one thing I know for sure. If we don't try, we will fail. I guarantee you, if Dr. Chan today, if we didn't have the clinical data, Dr. Chan wrote a NCI grant proposal proposing a rat poison, arsenic trioxide, can be a cure for APL. The grant will be rejected. Okay, so we don't know. These compounds, after 100 patients, we are seeing some anecdotal data. And this is really the hope that we have to find many, many drugs for cancer patients. Because I'm a big believer, to cure cancer, we really need 3 weapons. One is prevention. If we can actually truly prevent a disease, like hepatitis B infection, hepatitis C infection, HPV infection, then you should never get cancer. Or my grandmother probably got an HPV infection. And at that time, we have no idea why people get cervical cancers. But now we know 100% of cervical cancer pretty much came from HPV infection. So now in the US, there's HPV screening, and there's now HPV vaccine. So my next generation, hopefully, will never have to suffer from cervical cancer. The second line of defense is early screening. again, HPV screening really is the one solution we have invented since Nixon declared war on cancer. That the cervical cancer death rate is one of the cancer death rate has dropped dramatically. And the last resolution is what we so-called a targeted therapeutics. And when I talk about targeted therapeutics, is really, I use the analogy of laser-targeted missiles. You know, the US defense always uses laser-targeted missiles. You shine a laser on the target, and then you send in the missile. So in that case, you really need two weapons. One is a GPS system, so you have to have the right, target. And then you have to have these missiles. And because human genome is so complex, my prediction is we probably need thousands of these targeted missiles. We need arsenic trioxide, we need ERISA, we need Gleevec, and we need thousands of them because there's thousands of targets for different people. And I really think that the cure for cancer is right in front of us if we put all our resources together. We're really a generation of people are blessed with all the tools available to us. The human genome was just decoded about a decade ago by my old boss, Craig Venter. And we human beings never had that kind of luxury of seeing our entire genome. As a matter of fact, the genome sequencing cost is now coming down to thousands of dollars per genome. And now we are blessed with more collaboration among big nations. We human beings used to think about how we gain resources from other nations or other people. But isn't it time for us to think about our daughters, our sons, that can we today put all our energies together to truly beat our own common enemy, cancer? And I think this award and the recipients, Dr. Chen and Dr. Wan's achievement in this field really, I think, will crystallize this, this mission that the war against cancer is not just an American war. And it's not a Chinese war either. It's really a war of all of us. And when we put all our resources, put all our minds together, put all our executives together, put all our government officials together, maybe we will have a chance to beat this disease. Thank you so much. And Dr. Chen and Dr. Wan, you are our heroes in the war against cancer.